Now let's talk about the next pandemic. Of course, no one wants it, but it's not something you can wish away, so it's best to be prepared and be informed. Where will the next big outbreak come from? It may not be like the Wuhan virus. It may not even come from a wet market or a lab. In fact, it could be in the making as we speak. I'm talking about drug-resistant superbugs. They're immune to antibiotics. They pose a significant risk to humans, especially in India. These bugs are taking thousands of lives every day. Every year, drug-resistant infections are killing at least 1.2 million people the world over. That's about 3,500 deaths every day. Many of these patients are dying of infections that are completely treatable. And we're talking about all kinds of infections here: bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, like pneumonia, tuberculosis, and malaria, just to name a few. They're all becoming harder to treat. Existing medicines aren't working very well. Proven drugs are failing to treat patients. Why is that? Because the bugs have built resistance to medicines, and Indian patients are particularly vulnerable. In 2019, a study was conducted. It looked at drug resistance in 41 countries to see how effective antibiotics are among different populations. 41 countries, and Indian patients were included in this research. A rating was assigned to every country. They were marked on a scale of 1 to 100. A low score meant the drugs were effective, and a high score showed significant drug resistance. Guess who got the highest score? India did. India's rating was 71.6, meaning there's a higher chance that antibiotics won't work in India. They won't be effective in treating a larger number of Indian patients. And why is this happening? Because antibiotics are often misused in India. Patients pop them for anything and everything. In many cases, people just self-diagnose and they start taking antibiotics without a doctor's prescription. In other instances, doctors prescribe them even when the patient doesn't need antibiotics. And we have data to back this claim. It is from India's National Centre for Disease Control. Again, this was a survey of 10,000 patients. And here is what it found. In more than 50% of the cases, more than half the cases, antibiotics were given as prophylaxis, meaning a preventive drug. The patients did not need an antibiotic. The idea was to preempt and stop the infection. That's why they were given it. Only in 45% of the cases, antibiotics were given to treat an infection. So basically, patients are popping antibiotics like it's candy, and this is dangerous. This overuse is what leads to resistance. Viruses and bacteria learn how to survive these drugs. So when the patient genuinely needs this medication, it is no longer effective. This is by far the biggest cause behind the rise of drug-resistant superbugs. There are other contributing factors too, like poor sanitation, the lack of access to clean water. They can all make this outbreak worse. Even air pollution can play a role. Countries with high levels of air pollution also have a high number of cases of antibiotic resistance. This problem is simply too big to ignore. We may need to invest in new drugs or implement tougher rules to regulate the sale of antibiotics, but so far, this seems no one's priority. It's not getting the kind of attention from world leaders that it deserves. Experts say if antibiotics continue to lose their effectiveness, by the year 2050, 10 million people could die every year, 10 million, just because of drug resistance. Since the pandemic in 2020, the world has talked about better preparedness, but our leaders need to put their money where their mouth is.
Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison LaGrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. South Africa goes to the polls on the 29th of May. I will track the election and bring you ground reports. Is it the end of the road for the African National Congress? And will former President Jacob Zuma stage a dramatic comeback? From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost.